up really early. I can hear the birds outside to make some elderflower cordial this morning. Two reasons for this. One is that actually the elderflowers, you get a little bit more of that scent and that fragrance if you get the flowers early in the morning. But it doesn't really matter. Whenever you get them, you're still going to make a great cordial. And the other reason is I get the place to myself and it's quite quiet, so I can actually manage to do this. So I'm just going to show you what I've got in the kitchen first before we head off outside, and I show you what the elderflowers look like and how to pick them. So you need a very big bowl or a big container of some sort, a very clean trug or a bucket would also work. I'm going to use a bowl this time, but I have used buckets, I've used trugs in the past, and this is what our elderflower is going to sit in and soak in overnight. I have got a chopping board with knife and also a potato peeler. This is to take off the zest off my lemons, and I have 3 lemons and I also have 1 lime. Now it's up to you. Generally I would say 4 citrus fruits, whatever you want, the majority of which should be lemons. I like lime, I think it cuts through the sugar. Some people add orange to make it even sweeter. It's whatever you want. Why don't you try around with it? And some people just do lemons, just do 4 lemons. So, you know, play around with it. Some recipes will say 2 citrus fruits, 2 lemons. Some will say 4. There is no hard and fast rule. It's whatever you like, basically. And then I've got my sugar. So caster sugar, granulated sugar will be absolutely perfect. I go for unrefined because it's a bit better. And we're going to be using 1 kilo, so that's fantastic. That is 1 kilo. No measuring needed. And then I've also got a pan which we're going to make the sugar syrup in. I find it much better to use a non-stick pan. To use one that isn't non-stick. If it's non-stick, it seems to crystallise the sugar. Having said that, though, we're not making a proper syrup, so it shouldn't be. You should be alright with a non-stick if that's what you've got. And a measuring jug, because we're going to measure out 1.5 litres of water. And the last thing you're going to need is citric acid. So you can buy this online very easily. You don't have to buy as big a packet as this. You're only going to need 1 heaped teaspoon, but it's really easy to get online. And it keeps forever, so keep it in your cupboard. It will come out again next year quite happily. Don't worry, this recipe will be underneath this video as well, so you don't need to remember the quantities. Right, let's get outside and pick some elderflowers. Okay, so here's the elderflower, and there's a smell of elderflower. You can smell the elderflower. It is so distinctive. So if you're not sure, have a good whiff, because you will know when you smell it if it's elderflower. And you want to pick the heads that aren't going brown. You don't want a brown one. See, they're already starting to go over a little bit, some of them. But there are also quite a lot still in bud. These will keep going for a few more weeks. There's one in bud there still. So we don't want that one that's in bud. We want one that's completely out in flower, and that will have all the fragrance that we need. And we need 30 of these heads, so I'm going to get on and do some picking. So here we have my 30 heads of elderflower. So I like to use a basket because I'm kind of traditional like that, but don't worry if you don't have a basket, you just use any bag. And try not to use plastic if you can avoid it, but you know, if that's what you've got, that's absolutely fine too. It doesn't really matter. And a good pair of scissors. I have got some floristry scissors, but you can also use secateurs or garden or kitchen scissors. Whatever you've got, will be absolutely fine. So, got more. Let's go and start making the cordial. So we're back in the kitchen, and before we do anything else, we need to start getting our sugar syrup going. So I'm just filling up my pan with 1.5 litres of water. Now, as I said earlier on with your citrus, this recipe is, you don't have to be that accurate. If you've got a few more elderflower heads or a few less, doesn't matter. If you've got a little more water, a little less water, again, it doesn't matter. So just, you know, make sure that you just follow the recipe roughly. It doesn't have to be all that accurate. I'm just going to put the sugar in and then pop that on, ready to start to warm up. The syrup needs to be warm when it comes off, not boiling, but the sugar should have all dissolved. It looks like an awful lot, I do realise that. But do you know what, do you only have a tiny bit of cordial in the bottom of the glass? so you don't get that much when you actually have it as a drink. So let's get rid of that and pop that on. And whilst that's happening, I'm going to start doing our elderflowers. Now, again, this is something that I do. You don't see it in very many recipes, but I like to do it. I like to take all the little flower heads off the stalks. I know it seems like a massive thing, but if you get a fork and just start to pull it off, actually it doesn't take long at all. And you can, if you want, just use your fingers and just pull it off. It doesn't matter if you get in some of the twiggy bits, but I just like to get rid of this bit here. I just think it just adds a bit of bitterness. But that's just me. My mother and I were having this conversation the other day. She doesn't reckon so. So you see it in some recipes, not in all of them. So again, it's just personal preference. So if you don't want to do this bit, you don't have to. You won't see it in all recipes. But it's something that I like to do. So the heads are all off our elderflower, and it smells amazing in here already. So I'm going to get on with doing my lemons. So I'm just going to take off again, you have to be accurate, just take off some of the zest from each of them. Don't worry if you miss bits off or anything like that. This is not MasterChef. And everybody's take on this is always slightly different. Everybody does slightly different recipes, so don't worry. That goes in with the elderflower. And then you take your lemon, and we're just going to slice it up into chunky slices. And that will go in with the elderflower too. So I'm going to do that with the rest of them and then show you what happens next. So I've sliced up all my lemons and my limes, taken off the zest of them and put those in there. And so now we're ready to just put in the citric acid. So I've measured out a heaped teaspoon, sprinkle that over the top. And just one more thing for it, which is the sugar syrup. I've just given this a stir, just made sure that it's all dissolved at the bottom. This isn't boiling, it is just hot. But you do need to make sure that all the sugar has gone, which it will do, if you just leave it heating on a medium heat for long enough. And then just tip that in, there we go. I feel a bit like a witch now, with my cauldron. And there, that's it. Give it a quick press down with a wooden spoon, just make sure that everything's under the water, mixed in nicely. But that is that stage all done. And now I'll just cover it over with a tea towel and put it in a cool place just to sit for 24 hours. And I'll come back and show you what happens in 24 hours. So we're 24 hours later now. This is soaked overnight in a cool place and it's now ready to be strained. We need to get rid of all the debris in here. But before we do that, we need to get our bottles organised. I'm using glass bottles, but you can use plastic ones. And to sterilise these, I've just washed them out in warm soapy water. They're still a bit damp. I've removed the little rubber bits that go onto them because those won't do very well with the next stage. And I'm going to stick them in the oven to dry them out. So if you stick them in the oven until they're completely dry, then they will be sterilised. If you're using plastic bottles or you don't want to put them in the oven, you can use Milton tablets or anything like that to do sterilising. Or the other thing is with plastic bottles, you don't actually need to sterilise them if you're going to be putting them in the freezer. So just make sure they're really clean with warm soapy water, make sure you get all the soap off, dry them off properly, and as long as they go straight in the freezer, you won't have a problem. But if you're going to be keeping them in the fridge for a couple of weeks, I probably would use something like Milton to just sterilise them to make sure you don't get any nasty things growing in your elderflower. So I'll just stick these in the oven. And now we are ready to do our elderflower. So you need another big bowl. You can do this in several different ways. Because I'm not at my home, I'm having to slightly do things a bit differently. So I'm going to use a sieve and I'm going to use a J-cloth to just catch all the tiny little bits in the sieve. At home I've got one of those jelly strainers with the stand, which you can use. I've got muslins as well. But do you know what, if you can just use a thin tea towel as well, be absolutely fine. As long as it's clean, obviously, then that'll work perfectly. So we just tip that into there. And this will probably have to be done in stages. This will get sticky. So I've strained all of my elderflower. I've got it all in this bowl and in a jug. And I'm now ready to get the bottles out of the oven and see if they're all sterilised. So once they're dry, the glass bottles in the oven, then that's mean they're all sterilised. So my bottles are all sterilised and I'm ready to start filling. And I've got my elderflower here, ready to go. So funnel really does help. Just makes the process a little less messy. You will get everything sticky. It kind of can't be avoided. There we go. Just looks delish. Can't wait to try this. Pop that on there so it's got its seal. And then I just label them up with a marker pen or make a label. Make sure you put the date on in case you do a couple of batches, and then you'll know what's the older one and which one to use first. So I'll just finish bottling up and then we'll be all done. So there we are. I've got my elderflower bottles ready to go in the fridge once it's been labelled. And there's nothing better on a warm day than an iced glass of your own elderflower cordial. You're going to love it. So give it a try and let me know how you get on. Bye.